Hello, for those of you who might remember me and this Crown Victoria right here. So I've been battling a misfire in this car, and I'm not 100% sure what the cause of this is. You might have seen me already replace the plug, the injector, and the coil pack on this car for my P3008 cylinder 8 misfire code. That didn't do anything. So then when I plugged the force scan into this car, it said the possible cause of this would have been a bad fuel pump or a bad fuel level sensor. Now, I did have an issue where it was reading the wrong level in the fuel tank. It was either full or empty or anything in between, or I would just switch in between while I was driving. So I replaced the fuel level sensor and now have a working fuel gauge, and the car is not running as rich anymore, but I still have that same P3008 code. And while I was running this car, I started to smell like a bit of a coolanty kind of smell coming from the motor. I was like, damn. It's not the coil, it's not the plug, it's not the what's the other one? Injector. It's not the fuel pump. I really hope to God it's some kind of coolant leak getting into the engine. Otherwise, my only other option is blowing motor. Again, I don't mind rebuilding this engine or putting a new head gasket in it. I kind of need this thing to run probably this weekend because my mom's car got totaled, and Crown Vics are apparently really hard to total. This one especially, if you look at the rear bumper right there, which you might not be able to see because it could be washed out. Anyway, so my current plan is to pull the intake manifold on this thing, check for any coolant leaks around the intake manifold that could be getting into the cylinder, and also check to see if the intake manifold gaskets are bad, causing an air leak to cause a misfire. And I realized if it's an air leak, it's probably more likely to be a random misfire. So I'm hoping again that there's somehow coolant getting into this cylinder 8. So let's do this shit. Okay, so step one in this whole process is to disable the fuel system. Mainly because I don't want to be covered in fuel again. That sucked. So what you're gonna go do is right over here on this side of the trunk, you're gonna see the fuel pump inertia switch. It's actually labeled fuel pump shut off switch. You're gonna want to trip that. Oh, hummingbird. You're gonna want to trip that switch so it'll disable the fuel pump, and we can basically empty out the fuel system. So what you want to do is pull this cover back. Normally what happens is when you get in a car crash, this guy will trip. You can either knock on it like that. I want to say one thing. The trunk is currently locked right now, but don't hit the little cut-off valve. Just take a screwdriver. There's a little slot in there and pop it up. That's probably going to be your best option. Hitting it doesn't work all the time, and you got to hit it pretty hard. That risks breaking it. So yeah, just stick the screwdriver there and pop it up. There, that should be tripped now. You heard the click, click, click. Now we close the trunk. Okay, so the next step you want to do is hop in the car and start it and let it run until it dies out. So there's that. There it is in all of its glory, the modular 4.6 2-valve V8. Probably one of the most reliable engines Ford's ever made, and yes, I realize everyone says that about the 300 inline straight 6, which I also have one of, which is also insanely reliable. But this one has about 120,000 miles, and I guess it's about time for it to start giving some minor problems here and there. It looks like a lot of parts are original, but I will say the intake manifold is aftermarket. It's a Dorman unit. You can see right here by the fact that it is a metal thermostat housing with a metal crossover tube. The OEM parts were plastic, which caused the big leak. I'm hoping that maybe something somewhere else fucked up, and that's my problem. Okay, next step is going to be to remove the battery. It's going to be an 8mm or 5/16. That's just going to be this right here. Pull the negative off. That should be good enough. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this by the book, right? And if I was doing this by the book, there's supposed to be a cover that goes over the motor. But honestly, I hate... Oh, and the hood's active again. It's 3 cop cars. 1, 2, 3. Anyway, so there's supposed to be a plastic engine cover that goes over here. I don't have that, obviously, because I got this thing for $1,000 from a police auction, and apparently they don't have those kinds of things. Next thing you want to do is start disconnecting all these little connectors right here. One's going to be going to the mass airflow sensor, which is right there. This guy is super simple. Pops right on here and pops right off. Now with these Ford connectors, they're actually a little bit different on these ones. So there's going to be like a little red lock thing underneath. I can't really show you too well from up here, but I'll show it to you later. You need to pull this little red locking clip out, and then you can press down the connector to remove it. So what I'm going to do is get like a little flathead or a key, put it in this little slit below the little lock ring, and then pull it out from there. Down here, just like that. It's out now, and now you can pull it out. So right here's what I'm talking about. This little red locking ring, it is inside, it's got to be popped out, and then you can press down here to remove it. It's a little complicated at first, but once you get used to working on these, it's actually really pretty awesome. It makes it really unlikely for this thing to accidentally pop out. Okay, next thing is pop this guy off right here. Yoink. Yoink. Okay, that should be all the stuff holding it on this side. Pop it out just like so. There we go. Okay, so the next thing you gotta pull out is this little hose right here. See, so there's gonna be a little tab on the back that you push in, just like that, and it just pops right out. So here's a little tab. Might be a little bit difficult to see it from that angle, but it's gonna be this little green tab right here. You push back and push down, it opens it up, and it comes right on out. Okay, next up is gonna be a flathead on here. This little hose clamp that holds the intake, or I don't know, air body, intake tube. That sounds like a good ass name, intake tube. On, so then we just pop it off and just wiggle. Now that we took everything off, it comes off a nice one piece. Okay, so the next step is to remove the serpentine belt. This is pretty easy. Comes right here, pops in like so. And what you want to do is push this in so it comes out just like that. So the whole thing is loose, it just slides nice and off. I do gotta get a new one of these, to be honest with you. Mine's a little old and crusty. There we go. That's nice and off. You can see my cracks are starting to form. I'll worry about that a little bit later. So the next thing that's gotta happen is removing the alternator itself. It's pretty simple. There's going to be a couple electrical connectors, so this one right here, you got to remove. So it looks like this is going to be one of those little things where you want to get like a little screwdriver, something like this, right? And then pop it right into this little top peg of this hole, maybe. Actually, let's pull this off first. So yeah, there's this guy right here. We'll pull that one off first, and then we'll have more clearance to get into there. So it looks like the top bolt on that is going to be a 13. Pop that on off. That's there. Now I have better access to this guy right here. Okay, back here. Pop that off. Maybe. Oh God, I hope I didn't just break that. Please, no. There we go. That's out. So those two connectors are off. Okay, so the next step is going to be to remove these 4 10mm bolts on top of the alternator. Actually, real quick, before I do that, let me just put this 13 mil back on here so I don't lose that shit. And there we go. Okay, there's that bracket. That bracket comes off to the side, stays on there. And there's 2 more bolts on the bottom. So I'm gonna pop that back in there. Okay, so at the bottom of the alternator right here, you're gonna have 2 13mm bolts. Just gonna pop those off, and then we can go from there. Damn, these are some long boys. Might be able to see that right there. Yep. And here's another one right here. Now we have an alternator that is nice and loose. I'm just gonna put this in my wheelbarrow. I'll throw these bolts back into here. Okay, so for the next step, you're gonna want to take this upper radiator hose off thermostat. But since it's full of coolant, I am gonna be draining some coolant out of the car. I'm hoping I don't need to lift it up in the air. I don't think I do, but let me just double check. Okay, so the coolant drain on this car is going to be located on the driver's side. You can see it's right over here. So that right there is the coolant drain, and hooked up to it is this little red hose that is leading to a coolant jug. 3/4 plastic nut. Just going to take this out, loosen it a bit, and hope that the coolant drains into this plastic jug. There's that. Let's see if it's coming out through here. There we go. Okay, so the next step is going to be to remove this upper coolant hose right here. And the flathead screwdriver to twist off. And I'm genuinely hoping I've taken out enough coolant to the point where I don't have coolant everywhere. Let's see. So you pull, twisty, 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 twisty. Should be enough twisties. Yeah, that comes off there. Nice. Okay, so next step is to take off the two 10mm bolts on the thermostat housing. This looks like there's a possible coolant leak in here, not gonna lie. More rust in there. Thermostat housing comes up. Now we pull up the thermostat right there using a flathead screwdriver. That comes nice and out. Okay, so this is where stuff gets a little different based on what year car you have. Some of the older ones have like throttle cables and stuff like that, but since mine's a 2006, I am a drive-by-wire car, or this is a drive-by-wire car. So this cable comes off. Another little similar red clip right here. That gets pulled out just like that. Then you push in like so, and you can pull it right out. So same thing around here, another little green thing. There's a bunch of little hoses and stuff to disconnect from up here. Okay, now we're looking at the back of the throttle body, and you can see that there is a coolant hose right here. I'm pretty sure that's called like the throttle body de-icer or something. That's just gonna need to be removed. There's another little hose right here that you want to pull off. I'll grab it right here, push down on it, and it just comes right out just like that. This hose is not looking too good, I'm gonna be honest with you. Next is this connector right here. Pull that out just like that. Then, actually I think this can stay on just like the way it is. This connector that goes to the fuel rail probably needs to come off. Just like that. You can kind of see it from here. But there's going to be a 10mm right on this side. This is going to be it's like an EGR heat shield, if you will. So it's going to be one 10mm here, and then there's another 10mm on the back. So these two 10mm have to be taken off, just like so. And you can see there are like a coarser style screw because they go into the plastic of the intake manifold. And that's coming off just like so. Now we have a better access to the EGR hose that goes into the back of the intake manifold. So right back there you can see the EGR tube. I don't have the right size plier for that, or right size wrench for that. I think it's like a 27 or 28 because my 26 is just barely not big enough. But I'm gonna try this and hope I don't strip it. I probably should have put some PB Blaster on here too, but nope, didn't do that. Oh, that came out very easily. Okay, there's that out right there. So now what I'm going to be doing is basically going around the top of the intake manifold and removing every kind of connector that could hold this onto the vehicle. So it's going to be these two guys right here, just like that. These like vacuum lines are super brittle, and only the ends are rubber, everything else is plastic. So you want to be super careful not to break these. This guy right here gets pushed down, or just like earlier, back and up, and then should slide right out. There you go. There's that one. And this one right here. There you go, that's out. All the connectors are off. The only thing left here is the fuel line. Intake tube is off in the rear. Yeah, that should be basically everything. So we can start. So that's all the connectors and everything connected on the top to anything are off. I forgot one connector right here. And it's going to be right next to the throttle position sensor. Actually, I think it is a throttle position sensor. So again, another red clip, pull back, and it just comes right out. Nice and easy. Just gonna do another one pass around the thing, make sure everything that's on this guy that it would be holding it to the vehicle is off. Okay, so now there's gonna be 8mm bolts that are holding the throttle body EGR stuff onto the top of the motor. So I'm gonna be taking all this stuff out by removing these 5 8mm first. And this thing should, yep, there it is. It comes right off, just like that. So just because I don't want to lose any bolts, and because there's a ton of shit's going to be taken off doing this, I'm just going to put the bolts back in here like I've been doing so far. You can see every bolt that I've taken off, I've put back in the original hole, just because I really don't want to deal with anything going missing. And if I'm putting it back together and I'm going to be using this exact same intake manifold, I just want to make sure all the bolts are right. Okay, there's those 5 back in there. This is the fuel feed line to the fuel rail. So what you want to do is take off this little clip right here, which is like a cover. It's basically the same setup as every fuel pump and fuel filter out there. So pop this little clip off, just like that, right? Then next thing you do is you pop this onto here, just like that. Push into it, just like that, and it should come right out. Oh shit, yep. See, there you go. So now basically the next step is going to be to just disconnect every electrical connector you can up here, which is going to be your ignition coil. Oh damn, that click didn't sound good. That is all your ignition coils and fuel injectors onto here, just so you can get them out nice and safely like. And if you want to label them, go ahead, but they're pretty much laid up where they are, so it's kind of hard to fuck that up. But if possible, I've probably done it at some point. God damn it, these are not coming off. I'm really hoping these aren't breaking. And there is a ground at the end of the fuel rail right over here, which looks to be either a 10mm. I'm just gonna loosen that and pull that ground off too. Don't forget to put that ground back on. I'm pretty sure it's important. So I'm gonna pull off the bolt on these 2 15s. There's one 15 here, and then there's another 15 back here. It's a bit of a pain in the ass to get to, but it shouldn't be too bad. Okay, so the next step is going to be to remove this heat shield. There's one bolt here. I'll pull that one out. Ooh, that didn't sound good at all. Next bolt is right back in here. See if I can get a shallow 15mm. So looking at this bolt, it's right back here towards the back of the engine, and it's buried right back here. So you want to move this out of the way. And then towards the back of this piece, you can see that's where my finger is, where that bolt is, right there. It's facing towards the firewall. It's not too bad to get out. It just, it's one of those bolts where you kind of have to trust that it's there and then get on it. Okay, so now that all the fuel injectors are out, well, they're not out. The fuel rail is out. These 2 injectors are stuck in here. I'm gonna worry about getting those out later, but instead, I'm gonna now focus on pulling out all these these ignition coils. So there are gonna be 7mm bolts. We'll pull out each one and keep them to the side. You'll see that most of these are, I think, to be original. There we go. There's one, nice and dry at the bottom. Oh, that's not good. Damn, that shit was in there. Okay, so there is a coolant hose. Pretty sure that's for the heater core. That goes to the back of the intake manifold that needs to come out. See, it's right there. It's gonna go twisty because I have the non-original style clamps, which is like the screw-in ones, and that's out of the way. Okay, so the next step is going to be to pull out the last 8mm bolts that basically hold this in, or 10mm bolts Now, these are numbered. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a reason to that. So this is number 6. I'm trying to find number 8, wherever it may be. I'm trying to go in order for this because there must be a reason they're numbered. I'll start with the highest number first, and then work my way down. So that's... And I think now I should just be able to lift it up and out. So let's see. So there's also a bolt here as well. Okay, so basically I've decided to take this a slightly different route. I ordered the new gaskets, which are sitting in that box right over there. And I'm currently in the process of JB welding the intake manifold because of its crack. The JB weld seems to be setting up pretty nicely right in there. Good, or pretty well. The crack is pretty much sealed up. Right there. So, while that's still curing, I'm going to clean up the rest of my little mouse nest right in here. You can see this guy made a pretty good home for himself. And there's also rat piss and poop everywhere. It looks like the rest of that rat shit that's in there is pretty well caked in there, and I'm not overly excited about getting rid of it and touching it, so I'm just gonna brake clean the surfaces where the intake manifold goes onto so I can clean that off nice and good. Then I'm gonna get the manifold ready to be installed. So the number one rule of cars, right, is always have an old toothbrush ready. Okay, so right here you can see all the gaskets are lined up. These are basically all the gaskets I will be installing on this. So I've put them in right now just to make sure I have all the ones that are necessary. And what I'm going to end up doing is putting a tiny dab of super glue on each one, like just 2 little dabs. Mainly because if this leaks again, I'm getting the Ford Performance one that's for the Mustang that they say won't fit on here, but I think it will. And I am throwing this whole thing away because I've already JB welded one of the intake galleries, and I'm already about to like silicone up the mating surface because some parts of the mating surface are damaged. So you can see right here, pretty sure what I'm about to tell you is something you shouldn't do, but you can see my mating surface around here is pretty well messed up. So for that reason, I will be putting a little bit of water pump sealer all around the certain coolant gallery areas. Right there, right there, and right there. So, yeah. For that reason, I'm not really too worried about like super glue or needing to remove these gaskets. If they ever have to come out again, I'm throwing the whole thing away. So, AutoZone run, got some Gorilla Glue. Gonna top it into each and every one of them. That way, I don't need to worry about it falling out when I'm reinstalling it. Okay, now again, since I'm reusing this intake manifold and I'm only replacing the gaskets, and if it does leak again, I'm throwing the whole thing away. I'm going to be, and the fact that there's also some pitting along my mating surfaces on the intake, I'm just going to put like a slight dab of water pump sealer on all of the blue gaskets. Now again, I'm not recommending you should do this. In fact, this is exactly the opposite of what you should do when working on having gaskets like this. And I'm pretty sure like every actual mechanic you'll ever meet, it's like, no, don't do this, terrible idea. But at the same time, I'm just over leaks today. This is the kind of scary part. Move all these connectors and stuff out the way real quick. And then, make sure that's out the way. So now, what we do is we carefully flip this shit over and so we just start putting 10mm bolts in here. Hope they line up. There's one there, one here, one here, one here, one here. So now that all the bolts are in there, my next step is going to be to replace the O-rings on all of my fuel injectors. As you can see, they're a little crusty, and to be honest, I probably should be replacing them if I was trying to do the most exactly correct thing. But we'll see how this goes, especially in case I need to remove everything. So what I ended up doing is I got all these little like injector O-ring kits. Each box has 2 O-rings, right? One is the blue one, one's the black one. Blue one goes on top, black one goes on the bottom. We'll Vaseline it up a little bit, pop it in there, and then put them back in the injector holes that they came out of. Okay, so here we are with this particular injector, which will be our example injector. Damn, these things are tight. Surprised they weren't leaking fuel. Okay, that one's off. There you go, just like that. It's completely ruined, but not too bad. So we spray some brake clean on a rag, right? Clean that up, clean this little area up. Okay, so next thing you gotta do is pop these guys out right here, and then I'm gonna be placing them into this little oil thing so that I can lubricate them a little bit before I put them onto the injector. That way I don't have to deal with like any tail-on gaskets or anything. The black one goes towards the bottom and the blue one goes towards the top. Dip in a bit of oil, nice and lubed up, just like that. Then we just slowly slide it right on over this guy. I will say these are going on way better than the ones I got from AutoZone, which almost disintegrated right away. So another bath in oil real quick, nice and lubed up. Pop that right on there, and boom. Then pop that back into here, and do that 8 more times. So now that all of the fuel injectors have a new O-rings on them, I'm gonna slide my fuel injector rail back on. It still has my new Bosch injector from the other time that I replaced all these. I'm gonna put this right around here. Okay, there we go. That should all be pretty well in there. Now we go to the other side, do the same thing. Okay, so throughout this whole little process, you might have noticed that I have never once said to torque down the intake manifold bolts. That's because they get torqued down in a very particular sequence. In order to do that, you have to have all of the bolts needed to torque it down in place. The heat shield we took off earlier that goes towards the back of the engine, that covers the fuel rail, is also one of those bolts. It holds down the 11th manifold bolt. This is the one that's held on by the 15 in the back, and then the long 15 that goes all the way through the intake manifold. Basically goes in like this. That one right here. So that goes in there. And this bolt goes, this 15 goes right back over here. Okay, so there's that going. So I'm going to get all these bolts finger tight, and then I'm going to follow the instructions on how to torque the manifold, which is printed on the manifold, so it must be really important. So there's that finger tight there, that's finger tight there. Okay, so now the instructions are pretty clear in terms of how to do this. However, it employs a particular method of something that I don't exactly have at the moment. And the rules go, or the instructions go, torque bolts in 2 stages. Stage 1, 2 Newton meters or 18 inch-pounds. Now, 18 inch-pounds is like 2 foot-pounds of torque. The lowest my torque wrench goes is 2.5. But I got this extension on here, so it should like weaken the torque as well. So we'll go with that. So 5 foot-pounds is what I'll go with, just to start off. So the first one right here, there's 1. Fuck it, I'm pretty sure this is the smallest one I have. If I do have an inch-pound torque wrench, I sure as hell can't find it right now. There we go. There's 1, the lightest click I've ever heard. Go to 2. It should be right here. 3 is going to be the 15mm one. So, yep, there's 4. 5, there it is. There's 5. Yep, there's 6. Down up front. Fuck it, maybe that one's 7? Doesn't say. Fuck it, we'll treat that as 7. Oh shit, it's probably this one right here. Damn it. So whatever this thing is, has to come off then. Shit. Nope, it's an 8. Oh, I'll get the vacuum cleaner real quick. This is a bunch of dirt and debris. So I'm gonna be totally honest with you, I'm not proud of this fact, but I got really annoyed by just how hard that was to get to, and I ended up just drilling a hole in the cowl. I will put tape on it. Right there, you can see there's a socket, extension, boo boo. So that I can now torque it properly now. But that was just too fucking annoying. And seeing as I'm probably going to have to do this intake manifold again when I get the better Ford Racing one, which I'll make a video of as well. I'll just put some tape on it and call it a day. This one, I'm pretty sure I got all of them. Do a quick little burst to make sure I got them all in. Now, the next stage is 18 foot-pounds. Let's just go to that. The intake manifold is tight. I'm just gonna bolt everything over here back on and then close this up with tape and go from there. Okay, so it's been a little bit. I've been driving the Crown Vic around and editing the video, and I realized I have officially lost all of the video after the point where I reinstalled the intake manifold. Hopefully you can figure out how to put this thing back together on your own. It's relatively simple. There you go. But yeah, I put the motor back together, drove it around, still misfire, took everything back off, started pulling spark plugs to do a compression test. Haven't got to that just yet. I'm going to determine if the motor is good before I order the new Ford Performance intake manifold. But yeah, that's basically where this video ends. I'm hoping to get everything back up and running, but as you can tell, life had different plans. I'm still working on my mom's car that got totaled. Why is that still leaking coolant? What the hell? Anyway, there's that. I put the thermostat, our temp sensor on here. That's got to be from yesterday. There's no way that's still from today. Anyway, but yeah. So when it comes to the car, it's basically, don't do what I did. Don't try to fix it with Weld and super glue. That didn't really work. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. Just buy the correct part. And I'm not too sure about the long-term viability of the dome part in general, because I was looking at the Ford Performance part and comparing it to this. The main difference between the Ford Performance part and this one is one is an OEM part, but also this one does have a metal crossover tube. However, the bottom layer right here is still composite, and I'm pretty sure that's where it's leaking from here. And I think that's also where the coolant is getting into the car itself. So what if I determine that the motor is still good and has good compression? I'm going to take this thing apart, order the $407 intake manifold, pop this thing back together, and hope that fixes it. Because I'm gonna be honest, for a car that I bought for like maybe $1,200-1,300, it didn't last as long as I thought it would. I haven't even got the auction lettering off this. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more of me struggling with this car, hit subscribe, because there will be quite a bit more.